G'day and welcome to the Inforunners. I'm Execute, joined today by Algared. How you doing, mate?
I'm fairly well. And today we have a special episode coming to you from the request of Lunamaria. Yes, it's finally here. Finally time.
Yeah, got pushed
So
back
what is the
months and
episode we're doing
months.
again?
I don't know. I forgot. No. So
She
basically,
asked her it so many times we kept pushing back. No, that wasn't the reason, but that was the joke. We kept pushing. Anyway, so
they wanted us to look at 3 ships that we would fix and why. And so I think it's been a long while since we kind of did a fix my, or can we fix it, I think is what we used to call the series. And so we kind of had a look at it again and kind of knowing how they're going to kind of upgrade a lot of the ships and things like that. Like, this is kind of probably a bit more for the now, wouldn't you say?
yeah, definitely for now, because I think all the ships we're looking at are ships we know they're going to redo.
Yeah.
At some point.
Yeah.
Just to bring it up to standard.
And I think we can say that across the board, all ships are going to get a redo, you know? So this is a little bit, you know, for the now, as I said, because eventually everything will get there. So, yeah. But Algared, we'll flip it over the browser. Before I do that, what's our first cab off the rank? Do you remember?
Our first cab off the rank was the Aurora.
That is correct.
I do believe.
So this is an image that me and Algared wanted to grab because we think this kind of shows that what's possible, you know, like it sounds a little harebrained to put wings on it. But I think it's not a terrible idea, and it does have, you'll see there, the little doors on it that they've never actually ever opened. Yeah, well, they've never opened. I actually think it needs to have the fans on it like the Constellation. And I think that would change it from more of a flying brick for me. Being the original ship, and I think all 3 ships we're going to look at today, Algared, have that. I guess I'd call it age-itis. I don't think you. Is that what you'd call it, or?
Yeah, definitely. I think two of the 3 are part of the original 5. And then the other ships are.
Well, this is the one that's not part of the original 5. This is the one that's not part of the original 5.
I'm just checking 1, 2, 3. No, 3 of them are the original 5. No, the Aurora is one of the original 5.
Okay, then they're all that old, and that's why.
All 3 are part of the original 5. So that's
you've just told everyone what they are. That's fine.
Sorry, I was just checking the
But I think it could use a little bit of an overhaul. You know, the struts are obviously a bit of a thing. You know, again, I think it will get its day in the sun, like I was saying earlier. So not saying this episode is superfluous, but it's just how far down the road is it? You know, like that's the real question. You know, it's obviously got some advantages, but as things have come along, we've had better interiors. This originally was able to dock with other ships. That's why it has that circular doors, and I think they're going to disappear. You tell me your thoughts, Algared, in that regard.
Yeah, one of my beefs with this ship is, yes, it's got a bed. It's got a small, it's a single person ship. It's meant to be able to go there longer distances. The original idea of that bed was that, yes, you could log off in game and save your position. Whereas if you didn't have a bed and you logged off, your ship would either try and automatically fly back to a base or just stay there.
Yeah.
The bed enabled your ship to be saved and pulled out of game, so it was safe. It was a safe log off point away from a station. I think that's changed. I think that idea has morphed somewhat.
Well, it just hasn't aged very well either. Like you put the cutter in the same league as this, and the cutter just kind of treads over everything else that came to it. So you've got to expect they're going to increase the cutter, increase the Aurora and the Mustang to at least somewhat match the cutter in some shape or form. And again, it's just got that age-itis. Like the whole back area is essentially a bed. And I think you could probably restructure it a little bit. And I hope they do. You know, the Mustang, you can see how that's easily fixed as an example. But this is most people's first foray into the game. Or they now have said the cutter is the most sold ship they've ever sold. So that just shows you how good of a impression it came in. It just came in and leapfrogged the Aurora, because the Aurora was the most popular starter, as far as I'm aware, until that point. I remember back when they did that vote, Algared, way back when, it was the most popular ship that had been sold.
And there are things that make that the case. Like, the cargo capacity on this ship,
Mm,
on the Aurora, is the underslung area. So you've got your bed up the top, and you can see that area where the
mm,
bed is, but just behind, just in front of the engines. The whole cargo capacity is a clamp underneath,
yeah.
um, and so it's externally held cargo. The cutter had internal cargo,
Mm,
same amount, internal cargo. It had a walkable, livable space. You could walk around the ship. You could,
mm,
and that feeds into that whole key thing that makes it Star Citizen apart from
mm,
every other space game. I am not my ship.
yeah.
I'm flying my Aurora, and even though I can get up and walk to the bed, I still feel like I'm my ship. There's not much I can do. And the Mustang,
Mm.
it's even more pronounced.
It
And so
would.
you can see why the Carter just is so much
Mm.
preferred
It'd be
to
cool if
the
there was
Aurora.
some other perks though, like because it's like got less interior, it's probably cheaper to operate, or it flies better of atmosphere or something like that. But I do like how this one, like in this image, it deploys the wings because that also
Yeah,
harkens to the Scorpius as
yeah,
well. Even if it's
and
not like all four of them, but essentially it's just like a double wing and it just like
yeah,
bends forward or something. That'd be kind of cool.
and And it's interesting because the Scorpius, in its landed position, was deliberately harking back to the Aurora
Mm,
to give it that RSI aesthetic.
yeah.
But the fact that the Aurora's wing, has those wings, and they could, it might be impossible just because it's part of the structural integrity
Mm,
of a ship. But having that ability would certainly give a uniqueness and
mm,
certainly give that nice flow through and tie that X-wing heavy fighter type aspect. The
mm,
other thing with the Aurora is it's a fairly tanky little ship for a
mm.
starter. Um,
Maybe not another, maybe not for the Aurora, but maybe another ship will get a Scorpion-esque wing type thing. So
yeah,
yeah, but yeah. All
but
right, let's move on to the next one, huh? Unless you got
yep.
anything else you want to add.
No, I was just going to say that it's a ship we do think is
Mm,
in need of an update. This would be a pretty cool one. The problem with the wings idea though is
mm,
those VTOLs work and how they're
mm.
going to work. And the problem
Yeah,
with the VTOLs is the bottom ones, even as they are,
yeah,
the bottom VTOLs are hidden under the top VTOL, the top wings, which means
mm,
they're not getting that intake of air because of, you know, as well because the top wings are blocking it. So
mm.
there are issues to me that stick out with the ship that need addressing. So yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, let's move on.
Agitis, as we said. Yeah.
Yeah,
All right.
looks cool, but yeah,
Yeah, the Freelancer. So I think for me, it's just now very different from every other ships in that class. Like they're two or three people, and
mm,
this is four, the same as
iconic.
Constellation, but there just isn't enough of everyone to do in that ship. If you go to the cargo variant, so the base variant, or even the max, you pretty much only need I can only get to three people in the miss,
Mm,
or the misery as I call it, and that's so you got one person reloading the missiles, and then one person co-piloting, one person flying. That's the best I can get to. In the
yep,
cargo one, it's just the two because your co-pilot can get up and check on the cargo, do a bit of repairs, and that's all you really need.
yep,
So for me, it's like the front end that needs to be restructured. Cut it back to two beds instead of four. It would then give you more space, as you can see there in the image behind us. That there's two beds on one side, two on the other. It would allow you to just space things out, so you could have a bigger bathroom, a bit of a living area, maybe even just a table with
yep,
two seats, so you can eat your food. Would be nice
yep.
instead of beds. And yeah, just it's really cramped in, and it's really got that ageitis. And we know they are not changing it because of Squadron
Yep.
42, yeah, but eventually they will, Algared.
Yeah, and you compare the living quarters in the Freelancer to say the living quarters in the Cutter or the
Mm,
living quarters in the Argo
yeah.
ships, and you just it's chalk and cheese. That
Mm,
wow, the Cutter's lovely. Wow, the the raft is lovely,
mm.
and
Well, this is
this
one of the
has that.
ships was before the old metrics too, so
It
that's
is.
it. It just shows you how much everything's changed. Yeah.
It is, and being a very old ship, it does have that, as you keep calling it, ageitis. It's
Mm,
it's one of the geriatric ships.
mm,
Being one of the first five.
Back when it was just in the hangar, by the way, so you can see there, obviously in the image, it's got the ladder here that you get out. It actually originally, as a part of the landing gear, it was a set of stairs you could walk down.
Yeah.
You know, so even that's something that we could come back around and possibly look at. And it was really cool. It was just this unique thing where MISC back then had this real 1920s aeroplane type of feel,
Yeah.
and I think it's lost a little bit of that in the older ships, but there was something very elegant
Yeah.
about walking down the landing gear. I know that sounds kind of weird, and I'm sure you can
Yeah.
Google
And
it
the
and find
landing
an image.
and that landing gear led up into that middle room
Mm,
section. So it was a cargo area, but it was also your entrance area. And it was
yeah.
really there was almost an elegance to it.
Mm,
And I know that sounds weird. It was almost this luxury elegance, and the metal skin that you saw on the Freelancers was harking back to that 1930s, 1940s,
mm.
aircraft, the
Yeah, yeah.
passenger aircraft look. So, and it did have that vibe.
Did have a
Yeah,
small downside too, because you obviously had to retract it up to walk to the cockpit, which was a bit of an annoyance as well.
yeah,
But I'm sure they'd have ways to get around that now, or have some way to walk around it.
yeah,
Again, I don't know, just an idea. But yeah, it just feels really out of place. Again, when you and I recently did that medium ship comparison video, it was just so clear that it was the most dated there. Like,
mm,
they had to essentially make the Spirit and the Zeus to compete with the Cutlass, because it was just so leagues in front of the Freelancer. And we know
yeah,
why. They're going to get around to work on the Freelancer. As soon as Squadron 42 is out, I'm sure this will probably be one of the very first ships they jump on to update.
yeah,
And probably the same thing with the last ship we're going to look at as well, Agrid.
yeah.
Yeah.
One of the things with the Freelancer that I think would be really a massive upgrade would be
Mm,
turning those two turrets into remote turrets, so you could actually literally do like in the ad where the guns could do that 180-degree arc,
mm,
so you could actually cover the sides of a ship. I'm sure you remember the image of
mm.
the Freelancer flying along, and the Cutlass is
Well,
coming up beside it, and it just pointing its gun to him, and boom.
so
You
that
know,
would be not that hard to do. You just have to make them remote turrets.
yeah. Um, and then that could possibly then increase the crew requirement, because you could have a
Yep.
starboard and port turret
Well,
going.
you'd have your pilot, your co-pilot, a remote turret operator, and the actual turret operator in the back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it increases that that
Mm.
you could see that crew count being included. I think if you did do remote turrets for those guns, you'd be taking that firepower away from the pilot,
Yep.
and he'd be then
Yep.
controlling missiles or other
Not
aspects,
necessarily a bad thing though.
and
In
not
my
necessarily
book.
a bad
Yeah.
thing. So yeah,
Right. I think we'll move
and
on
our
to
third ship,
the last one, which is the Connie series. We're actually just going to put
yeah,
all of them in one basket here.
I think that's what we do with the freelancers as well. We've dumped
Yep.
them all into
It's
together. So
Yeah, and well, again, they're these older ships, and they're in a series, and you'll notice all of these ships are in a series. The Aurora, the Freelancer, and the Connie series are all showing that age-itis, and it's just they kind of
yeah,
need an update. Now, Algared and I have different issues with this across the board, so let's look at the ones that we probably share in common. I think we can say the struts would be one.
yeah. Struts is one.
Um,
They do get a bit in the way at times, but
yeah.
yeah,
The layout, I think that's across the whole series, because there's multitudes of problems there across the board that we've talked about. This is probably the one we're going to spend the most time on, by the way, right? But my major problem I've always had with this ship is that it's just got no front landing gear, and because of that, had to be so many compensations made, I think is how I would probably word that. And it's because they seem to want to be able to drive the Ursa, or the vehicle, out both ways of the cargo bay.
Mm.
I think that's why it's caused aggro. But what's in? I know you have some very particular issues,
Yeah.
but across the board, as in all series, what's some ones that you have across the whole series?
Across the board is just that living space does feel cramped.
Mm,
Even for most of them, even though the toilet bathroom
mm,
area is small, you can get away with it. But the second you go up to the more luxury versions of
mm,
the Phoenix, it just doesn't cut it. And the
yep,
same, and I feel with the Aquila again, it
mm,
doesn't meet that long distance. I'm
mm.
out forever exploring because the living conditions are would be just so cramped, and so you want those quality of life issues to be a bit better.
Yeah. Well, you literally have an elevator coming up into the living quarters, yet there's a big space right in front of this, and there's just a turret.
Yep.
So for me, I've always kind of wanted it to have like a little bit like what we said with the Freelancer, like the landing gear comes down and the elevator's in the middle of it. And I remember when the very first time I explained it to you is like the elevator in Armageddon. They actually have a landing gear for the ship in Armageddon, and the elevator goes up and down
It's a
inside the
part
landing
of that
gear.
landing. Yeah.
And I always thought that would be really cool. But obviously, as soon as you have the landing gear there, the Ursa has trouble driving outside the cargo bay. And again, my fix for that is actually move the Merlin up and the cargo bay back. And I think the Merlin would not have to dock underneath. Like it's bespoke, completely different to every other ship in the game. And could just land in like a mini hangar, aka like the Carrack or whatever. And so you could have a split deck, one that goes down to the garage and cargo, and one that kind of comes up to or stairs, not deck, but you know what I mean, up to and I think that's better. And it's also
Yeah.
makes the ship a bit shorter. It doesn't need to be as long. Um, yeah, but that's
Yeah,
just my 2 cents.
I think part of a reasoning for that, certainly not putting the Merlin or the snub fighter on top, was
Mm,
because you'll recall that early on, the engines on the top engines, the dorsal engines, were supposed to
mm,
move together when it was in quantum drive
yeah,
and pull apart when it wasn't in quantum drive. So,
yeah,
or at least, or if it was in jump drive, it was supposed to have that movement. And you can
mm,
see that on the 10-inch model, where the engines still actually have
mm,
that lateral shift. And the engines were also, those dorsal engines also at pivot. They had some pivoting action so that they would increase the maneuverability of a ship.
mm,
And I think that has also gone by the board as the ship has grown into a large ship. It doesn't have that uh, level of maneuverability that it used to have.
yeah,
And I think so that things that have become redundant as the ship grew in size and its role changed from being a space superiority fighter to being more a
mm.
hauler and missile boat. So,
We also have, much like the Aurora and Freelancer, those kind of bespoke versions. So you've got things like the
mm,
Aquila that's got, that different cockpit and stuff like that. And then probably the big one is the Phoenix, which I know you have a
yeah,
massive problem with. So let's hear some of
yeah.
those issues.
So, two things. The Aquila, I'd love to see again because it's supposed to be this explorer. It's out for a long range. The living conditions on that ship is just hot bunks. You can actually see the hot bunk
Mm,
situation in the back there. Or not the hot bunks, but the two bunks, which are also your
mm,
escape pods, your little bathroom. You got your kitchen and your table that comes up from a floor where those two people are sitting.
mm,
Now that's okay if you're just doing truck runs, but if you're out in space for a significant time, you don't need that large cargo bay that, say, the Andromeda has
mm,
or the Taurus. You actually need something more akin to the Phoenix, where you've got
mm,
labs or additional spaces for the crew to actually do their jobs and move about. And so, for me, the Aquila really needs to have that fattening of that body section, that
mm,
midsection, and get that mid floor. Yes, it's going to reduce your cargo capacity a little, but I think giving those abilities for those labs or the live cages for your specimens or that would make it more of an exploration ship rather than just a ship that's had exploration tacked on.
yeah.
Mate. It would also give option to expand out the living quarters of a ship
Mm,
to make it again one that would enable or enhance crew productivity over time. And we know that
mm,
CIG have talked about, if you've got NPCs, they're going to, if they've got bad food or bad this or bad, them, they're not going to function as well as they could
mm,
normally. So whether they continue that line, um,
mm,
is another thing. The Phoenix for me has issues because there are things that it was sold as having that still have yet to be added.
yeah.
So there's a third turret that it's supposed to have that we still don't have. It was supposed to have more size 2 missiles than
Mm,
an Andromeda. It has no size 2 missiles. It was supposed to have better weapons,
mm,
or bigger weapons. It doesn't. So
yeah.
lots of these, extra power plant to power the additional turret and the the passenger area, the life support. It doesn't have that, and so
So
there's issues with that. So yeah,
So for me, I think the things like the Taurus, the Aquila, and the Andromeda, I think they can, like I said, if you move the hangar to the back and sorry, the cargo bay to the back and have that on the ground, and you kind of just drive out the back and the hangar on top, I think that all works, right? And obviously where the hangar would be becomes a smuggling room for the Taurus, and then it gives you more room in the middle for more of a dynamic room. And also because it's more forward, then the elevator can come up into the back of the cockpit. What doesn't work is the Phoenix. And I actually think the Phoenix needs the Buccaneer treatment. I actually think it needs to be split off into its own ship and completely rebuilt. And I know that might sound drastic, but think of the advantages that everything that Algared just mentioned, right? So they can add the extra hard points that need to be added and don't have to bespoke around it. It'll actually feel like a luxury ship, not this tacked on modified version of a more industrial generalist, right?
yeah,
And I think that's the one for me that needs to be broken off.
yeah.
How would you
I
feel
think
about
so.
that if they did the Buccaneer treatment?
If they crashed the current Phoenix, then rebuilt it as
Mm.
a standalone ship
Just,
with
maybe yeah, just
going all the way through, yeah,
maybe just clarify. So what the Buccaneer treatment was originally they had the Cutlass. The people they had sold the Cutlass as this fighter, but it wasn't fightery enough, so it had clearly become different from what they wanted. So they split it off, and you got the Buccaneer and the Cutlass, and you could pick which one you wanted with the $0 CCU. That's kind of what I'm saying here. Is
yeah,
you give people to kind of the option to downgrade back to a regular Connie, or and then basically get some credit, or you get this whole new Phoenix. And I think a lot of people would ride to the whole new Phoenix because especially you could also put the price up a bit. Being a
yeah.
bit.
Well, in the long run, the price rise on the Phoenix.
Mm,
If it had all the things that it was originally said it had,
mm,
um, you could easily see the price going up.
yeah.
My problem is the price, the increased price of a Phoenix was there
Mm,
because it was said it's got this increased price because
mm,
of all the things that it's got, all the extras it's got. So
mm,
that's why it's so, it's supposed to be this
mm,
armored James Bond type
mm.
car, so
Well, you can also see how they could redesign it to be,
mm,
kind of what they did recently with the Zeus and the Zeus Mark II. Is it's like,
yeah,
well, it's a Connie spiritual successor or whatever, and it's like a reimagining, and
yeah,
there is a constellation called the Phoenix, so it actually kind of just so you know, all the RSI, most of the RSI ships are named after constellations, so you could still it still fits within the law. It just it would then truly feel like a luxury ship. You can build it more around the links. You can put a proper bar in. You can put the pool room, the piano, the hot tub. Like you could literally have all of it in there, and even possibly add some modularity. But then remove things that are not needed so much, like the Merlin Archimedes thing. That could also be a hangar. So it allows you to not just have an Archimedes, but being a small one, you could build it to metrics. So therefore, that ship could grow, and not just this tube thing that they essentially
yeah.
did with that. It allows you to
And,
change the shape. It's just so many benefits to it. I don't know. That's my thoughts.
yeah, and when you consider that when Origin brought out the 600i luxury ship,
Yeah.
it was to compete with the RSI Aquila and show
Mm,
RSI how to do luxury right.
mm,
And the ship dwarfs
mm.
the Aquila.
Yeah.
Absolutely, in every metric. It if you put them side by side, the Aquila is hidden. You just can't see
Mm,
it. It was staggering. I can remember doing it, and
mm. Well,
and it was
this ship
amazing, wasn't it?
this ship kind of needs to be more on par with the size of the galaxy, not with a Connie,
Mm,
right?
yeah,
And so I think it just allows it to grow. And not only that, like let's just say for devil's advocate sake, right? Let's just say they actually made it a modified galaxy rather than a modified Connie. Just putting that out there. That would change. That changes everything. Look at all the space you've got to use. You've got more rooms for the guns. You've got more room for. You can see it all really quickly. It just make it. This
yeah,
ship is trying to do too much. The Phoenix is trying to do too much, and that's why it
yeah,
suffers. And so the only way to do that is give it more space to breathe. So either the entire Connor series has to grow like crazy, or just that one, right? And I think
yeah,
you could then modify the older ones and fix them, but the Phoenix is the real issue. So if you want to
Yeah.
give everyone that they'll promise, you're either going to disappoint people or justify the fact that that ship is what was originally was $125 more, right? And again, that puts it into the realm of other ships. Just
Yeah.
got an
So, and even if you're keeping the Phoenix in its current format,
email.
you've got in that fattened area, um, you've got two smaller bedrooms and the master
Mm,
bedroom. You've got the ghastly water tub room.
mm,
I know I'm a minority. I know
mm,
I'm a minority, but I hate the idea of a hot tub in the Phoenix. I wish that was you'd swap that out and have your piano
mm.
bass there instead of swapping it out
Yeah.
for the
You don't
the
you,
the.
you don't have proper entry points for
No,
the guests either. They've got to come through the crew area, and the only way around
well,
those problems is like I said, a different ship with a different layout.
the thing that the worst part is you could get your crew in through the hangar bay because there is
Mm,
a lift that goes up into the back area.
yeah.
So you could get around that, but you're taking in through the dirty hangar bay, and
Mm,
it's not as nice. Even
mm,
Josh Coombs, when he was making it, said the hangar bay, this garage bay, has been kept
mm,
as this more industrial area, and so you're
mm,
bringing your fancy guests through this lift past this nasty dirty area
mm.
up into this luxury. So you
Yeah.
need that. You almost need that a luxury entry, a bit like the Freelancer used to have with those
Mm,
stairs. They had that almost luxurious feel of
mm.
there was that sense of opulence or just old style.
It would allow RSI to kind of fold out to be like a secondary competitor to RSI, to Origin rather, and
Yeah,
they really do need somewhat of a competitor. There is no. It's almost like Drake needs one as well, by the way, right?
yeah,
There's no competitor or alternative choice, and I know they want them to feel vastly different from each other, but Origin is way out away on its own, and I would say
yeah.
Drake is a little bit out on its own, but you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
yeah, there's just
Uh,
nothing quite like them.
and my biggest beef with the Phoenix in terms of that living space area is that not only do your passengers need to come through pass through that area, but the only amenities on that ship
Mm,
are that little crew toilet,
yeah,
that little crew bathroom, and so
yeah,
your luxury guests are going through your
yeah.
passing by your crew bedrooms and passing by their dining room
Mhm.
to go to that little toilet, and that just for me is immersion breaking.
Yeah, no,
It's the one that just makes that ship just incongruous. It just doesn't work. And
it's
I'd just ditch one of those bedrooms and turn it into a luxury bathroom.
it's a night and day difference between,
Yeah,
say, the 600i that's too open and that this is too cramped, and
yeah,
you need that kind of middle ground. And I've gone over the Phoenix with you several times, and just the more I think about the Phoenix, the more I think it needs to be separated.
yeah.
It's just
It
doing
just
too much. And if you're going to pull anyone out, you could also take one of the other variants with you. Like, you know how you were
yeah,
talking about the Aquila? Why not split the Aquila off it? So you get the Aquila and a Phoenix, and you get a Taurus and a Connie Andromeda.
yeah. More of the
You know,
industry, military slash
yeah,
luxury science.
science luxury, and kind of more
Yeah,
industrial generalist, and they work together, right? And just like you said, you're essentially turning that like luxury living area of the Phoenix would be turned into more of a science lab. You
yeah,
know, you can lean into that exploration science part, you know, and
mm,
add the gameplay to that ship. And again, luxury with science works for me. You know, you can have that, you can take the Aquila based front and put that on the Phoenix as well. You see where I'm going with this? Like, it
yeah,
actually works out pretty well. So I'm just essentially talking about splitting the series in two, and
yeah.
you could actually track this back to some of the other ones too, like the Freelancer and stuff like that. But I think out of all the ones that really need it, it is mainly the Phoenix.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, you look at some of the things that people I'm sure you'll remember that people
mm,
saying they brought out the series.
mm,
Oh, can we put the rounded Aquila
yep.
cockpit on the Phoenix? Because everyone liked that
Mm,
topic. It stood out. It was unique.
mm,
It was wow. And then you also had um, the original Phoenix, where you had the luxury styling went through the whole ship. It was
mm,
ghastly, but it went through a whole ship. It was very 70s, almost you know, you had your avant-garde paintings on the walls.
Those really outdated.
It went through the whole ship, didn't it?
1970s luxury where they had the wired frills and the weird carpet
But it went through the whole. It went through the whole ship.
Mm.
And then when they redid the ship and made it into, you know, the current format, they literally worked on just the body section of a ship.
Yeah.
And you know, Josh Coombs did a great job on that body section.
Yeah,
it does look really nice.
It comes down to the fact that they don't want to change the look of how that ship looks, and I think by allowing them to change how it looks, they'll be able to do everything they need to do with the Phoenix, right? Because the Connie versions that work are the Taurus and the Andromeda. They kind of work, but they still need a bit of internal rework, right? But that one is just so highlighted, it's not funny, and I think that's kind of the takeaway for me.
I could even say the Aquila works in its format. You can get there, but it could be so much better by giving it a Phoenix treatment, if you like.
Is there anything you would like to hear from people in the comments below, Algared?
Yeah, are we crazy?
Oh, that's a good one.
Are we crazy on our three our choice of ships that need an update? What are the ships you think need an update? Why?
Yeah, I'd just like to hear about what we've chosen here. Like the Aurora for me is because it's a starter and it's a glaring obvious one because it's so many people own it. The Freelancer is just so lacking behind. And as we said with the Connie series, it's just age-itis, you know, and it's the same thing with, like I said, with Squadron 42. Connie is also in Squadron 42. It was the ship that was used for AI nav mesh. It was like they did with the planet stuff, but it was the first ship to get it, so they obviously don't want to change it. You know, I know a lot of people are going to talk about the struts and the visibility and all that type of things, and that you've obviously seen that mature as we've gone along. So you can take those updates and go back and see that they're the basic stuff, but really for me it's the loadout on that thing, the layout. Sorry, not the loadout. But yeah, no, so let us know your thoughts on that. With that then, don't forget to like, subscribe, and ring that notification bell. And thank you to all those people at the end of the video that went an extra mile on Patreon. Yeah, I think that's it, Algared, unless you've got anything you want to add.
No, that's it.
All right.
On that point,
He's been Algared.
He's been Execute, and we're out of here.
Catch you in the next one. Bye.
Bye.